Yeah, move on. Don't watch the other one, which is just a black screen and listening to you watch RT game.
Wait, is it? It is actually a black screen.
Yeah.
There, fuck it. That works fine. Yay, primary monitor capture. All right.
So this is Bolts versus the Oni Warriors.
And this is from
week
last
5. All right.
Have you seen this one?
Nope, I've seen none of them. I don't know anything about Phase 3. I don't know what the fuck's been going on.
See, same here. That's what we like to hear. We'll bullshit and make it up as we go along.
Yeah, I mean, all I know is that Beads and Aegis is not allowed, so I get fucked.
So good luck.
Yeah.
All right, you tell me when to go, and then I will hit play, and then we've got like probably 20 to 30 seconds or so before picks and bans.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just kick him with the normal thing. Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back, Smite fans, to the Smite Pro League. Phase 3, Week 5. First game heading up is Only Warriors versus Olympus Vault. SuperSonicBlur here with Kaizo to help me go ahead and break this one down. And we're 3 weeks into the next phase here. Like, we've seen some big changes, ups. These two teams are really trying to look for that top 6 seeding here. They've got to be coming into this one hot. Like, this is the moment you pull out all the big guns.
Yeah, you are pulling out all the stops here because, like you said, getting closer to Worlds, getting closer to those qualifiers as well, and you don't want to get relegated and have to play through the gauntlet in order to make your way in. So every single one of these games is mattering more and more with each passing week, and we are in the fall season now. This is where things start to get heated up despite the temperature going down, so I wouldn't expect these teams to leave anything out there on the playing field, and not really leaving anything on the ban field either, as just about everything that we expect to see going away, getting taken away here. You can see that Daji and Morrigan, which is one of the few gods that you actually need to ban out from that mid lane role, alongside that Ymir, which I think is the best support in the game right now, banned out away by the Bolts.
Yeah, the Ymir we've seen on siege defenses, 6 seconds is so long when you're trying to get into a tower, or so long when you're trying to get under a phoenix. And with gods like Cthulhu as well being around, it just makes this pick even stronger. This god that we're seeing first picked by the Bolts, Cernanos, has seen a huge upswing as well in popularity. Where is this one coming from? Like, are hunters now that good that even Cern is good?
Hunters aren't necessarily that good in a vacuum, right? It's just the fact that mid right now, you need so incredibly much pressure. And it's more than just wave pressure that you need right now, because we've seen a lot of metas where it's just, you clear the wave, you rotate it in the jungle, you're totally good, you go farm, everything's all hunky-dory. That's not really the game state we're at right now. You need to be able to, A, clear the wave fairly effectively, and then B, be able to fight, or at least attempt to fight, the enemy team away from this neutral farm, and frankly, any of their own buffs as well, if you can generate enough pressure. And that's what this Cernanos does in the mid lane. It will, from minute 1, be stood on your tower line, and if you pick a mage, a contemporary character for the role that feels like it should be at home, you risk just getting pressured into your tower. That's why we're seeing a lot of these hunters in mid. It's not just the Cernanos, it's also the AMC that recently saw a nerf. And it's also these assassins that we've been seeing, frankly, more than I think we should have. Like, we're seeing Pele mid, we've seen Set mid, we've seen so many different looks for this mid lane, but the overwhelming theme for all of these characters is one thing: they clear wave, and they have a bunch of fight pressure.
Yeah, and then as well, the other thing that's so good is because it's these squishy gods like these hunters, assassins love to feast on them. So we are seeing some more high pressure, high burst kind of early game scrapping. And like you said, it's all focused around this mid lane as the Muzen Carb gets locked in on for the Warriors side of things. But even when you come to that, you've got these team fights. Cernanos and Cupid have two massive circles that have huge impact on team fights as well. So it's not just a one-trick kind of situation.
Yeah, they definitely have a lot going for them, and this AMC is one that has seen a lot more value recently, even despite the nerfs that people are giving him. The attention to this character has all been negative in the sense that you haven't seen an AMC buff in a while. And that's not because AMC has always been this good and just now started to need nerfs. It's a shoe to fit a certain foot, and that's a weird analogy to say that this character has had this role the whole time. It's just recently that people decided that what he does is valuable. What he is capable of putting into the mid lane, all of the pressure, all of the fight potential in the mid lane is so much more valuable now. And it helps that, mages take a little while to get online right now. Like, you're seeing a lot of double stacking builds, you're seeing a lot of penetration delayed fairly far into your builds that you can't really fight as effectively as early on. If you can get any semblance of an advantage with these double hunter compositions, like what the Warriors have here, you can immediately rotate over, grab these neutral objectives, look for an early Gold Fury, swipe off that Pyromancer just about as quick as it spawns. The game is very snowbally right now, and the hunters are really what's enabling it.
And with that snowball idea, you mentioned mages can be hard to get off the ground. Okay then, so let's look at what we can do with a mage in this point. Nox has always had this super supporty style and has been picked in the support role. I'd hazard a guess that this Nox picks for the Oni Warriors is likely going to be support then?
Yeah, we've seen some weirdnesses from Nox, where she's tried mid lane and didn't really like it. She's tried support, that felt fine. She's tried solo and they went, maybe, but I do think that you're likely on target here with, hang on, is that Hindu man in the studio playing for the Oni Warriors? Hello, is that Nox for this guy?
I mean, let's be honest. I mean, if Hinduman's on the side, like, can we even cast these games? Like, this is all just like straight up. Hindu just wins this. Yeah, no, look at him. He's sat there. He's comfortable. Is this a mid-season?
He's sitting in the support chair too. Like, that's where the support usually sits. So that very well could be the fabled Hindu man Nox. We might be seeing it right here.
Someone make sure he doesn't have a hammer on him, please. Because if something goes wrong for the Onis, I don't know if it's in the regulations that you can go and break someone else's keyboard. But
yeah, he's not actually playing for the Warriors. He's actually a mercenary hired by the Bolts to infiltrate and do whatever damage he can. Vote's like, oh my god, do I actually have to lane with this guy?
Neil's back. I think Neil's back at this point. Oh, damn. Hindu's got. Okay. Well, at the very least, Neil is back, but I was going to say there's a soul on the enemy team, so they'd have to worry about it. But the soul pickup here, coming in now with the Xingqian as well, we see the full build for the Bolts in terms of the team comp. It does feel very much like this kind of mid-gamey team fight from my money, and with Onis now drafting the Amaterasu, I think both of these teams really want to butt heads at some point.
Yeah, and a very intelligent, very attractive caster by the name of SuperSonicBlur a couple of hours ago told me that we're at the point of the meta where you've got the good stuff, you've got the stuff that counters the good stuff, and we've evolved to the point that we're countering the stuff that counters the good stuff. And that's where this soul really comes from, because a lot of what's played in mid right now is the Kernanos, the AMC, the Set, the Pele, all of this stuff that wants to fight you to the bottom and generate as much pressure as possible. You're not killing a soul. That's just not going to happen. She's so incredibly safe. Her auto attacks do so much damage even from the offset of the game. Once she gets any heat online, that immediately starts to make her deal so much more damage with those auto attacks. And she also, again, allows you good objective DPS for these neutral objectives early on. So the soul in the mid lane is definitely an option, but I mean, honestly, either one of these two gods that they have for the for the Bolt should be totally fine to stick in ADC or mid respectively as much as you would want. I think Barracuda, for my money, more of a Kernanos player, and I would like to see Ven on the Soul, but I think that either one realistically is just as flexible as the other.
I mean, you say that, I'm actually the opposite opinion. I can remember going back with Soul and Barracuda. I mean, it's not obviously the Apollos of of days of old, but I definitely can see Barra piloting this Soul incredibly well. One of the players who's been playing it for a very long time, and into a Cupid. Both options, like you said, are fine. If it goes against the AMC, it can bully out well. If it goes against the Cupid, it holds lane pressure down well. For my money, it's this Nox pick. These Nox
Yeah,
Amaterasus. This is your
definitely.
front line. This is your engage. I'm concerned. Nox has always been a god who, if you hit her stuff, feels broken.
Yes.
If you hit her stuff is the very big caveat, though.
Yeah, check out the Smite subreddit right now. I've got a Nox pentakill clip on Arena that I have a couple of days ago, but you're absolutely right. This Nox pick is feast or famine to the extreme, because a lot of characters you feel like, oh, I missed my meatball, but I at least created space with it when I'm playing Vulcan. You don't really feel those same effects with Nox. It's literally, I have this guy locked in, kill him, or, oh my god, they used beads on my cooldowns, I'm no longer a character. And of course, that Night Terror ultimate shutting down that damage, making sure that whoever gets hit by it deals less damage, does have a support lean to it, but it really is just as easy as you either hit your abilities on Nox or this character feels like she's next to useless.
Well, let's see whether or not Neil has got the aim locked in for game number 1 here. Olympus Bolts versus the Oni Warriors. Top 6 seeding is on the line for this game, so a lot to play for. And it is going to be Venenu here on the Kernanos,
Alright.
with Barracuda going to be piloting the Soul into Dardes and Vote on the AMC and Cupid, respectively. So far across the board, aside from maybe Baskin opting here for the Conduit gem, everything seems calm and still, and we're not worried about shifting the meta too much.
Yeah, and
Yet.
Conduit Gem it's just such a good option for these Guardian solos who traditionally have a difficult time clearing, and we'll see Neil Ma backdrop for this conversation going to try to grab at least one creep on that purple buff, but Guardians tend to have a difficult time clearing the wave in solo, and that's what this Conduit Gem really serves to do. It gives you a lot of early damage to help you make sure those waves go down and you don't lose anything to tower, but, I mean, even once you get this item fully upgraded, that Gem of Focus for these Guardians, making them percent mitigations tanky, which is the best kind of tanky you can be in Smite, makes it so much more difficult to bring them down, in addition to, again, all of the damage that you're doing with this item, because it makes you faster, it makes you do more damage. It's kind of your jack of all trades option for these Guardian solos, and it just so happens to also feel good early.
Indeed, it does, as Lasbro goes ahead and helps out on this side of the map, grabbing Totem of Ku. I was going to come back and ask how Neil ended up getting pressured so quickly, but Barracuda has opted for the Mannequin Scepter here. And for my money, this is not something that we usually see in the Hunter role, but Soul absolutely loves this.
Yeah.
Cubo's over here just to try and pressure out a little bit for this Scepter, but Lasbra's blinked in on mid lane. There's a beads from Dardes, and the damage is going to be good. Lasbra picks up first blood, as we see Cubo just opting to try and help farm, left that mid high and dry.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, AMC has a lot going for him right now, but he never fixed the issues that he's always had in his entire lifetime. If you get to this character successfully, and I don't mean see him, I mean you are physically on top of him, he's fairly easy to bring down. He has only a self or a like AoE slow around him to peel for himself that's not really going to help you when a Bastet's jumping all over you like that. It's really the space creation tools and the mobility for this character that allow him to live. And if you can surpass those with good pathing, where obviously they didn't know that the gank was coming, not to mention the additional damage that the Bastet has at this stage of the game, the additional crowd control from Ven on the Kernanos, all of that adds up to a very effective first blood where Darda's really just caught slipping more than anything else.
And it's a rough situation to see, but one that I'm sure that the Oni Warriors are not too caught off guard of, oh no, our AMC got ganked by a Bastet. I have a feeling Dades was expecting that at some point or another, so better to rip the band-aid off early. As we can see, we spent a lot of time there looking over the duo lane side of things. Neo's been hitting these routes pretty consistently, and for Vote, that's just a free heart bomb target, and already Barracuda has had a lot of pressure put onto them. Sure, their health bar's full now, but their mana has taken a beating in trying to just keep that sustain going for them. And unfortunately, there's not a lot that Jake can do. It's either Jake eats the heart bomb or he tries to disrupt Vote. And either way, someone's going to be eating a lot of damage.
Yeah, but this dual lane for the Olympus Bolts is very hardy, very plucky, and difficult to bring down. I mean, Jing 10 with the HP 5 from his passive is very strong and very tanky target. And again, I talked about on the death segment, the Soul, so difficult to lock down, so difficult to really bring her down. She's got healing in her own kit as well, in addition to that crowd control immunity. So not too difficult to live over there. But Baskin, on the other hand, is... you're definitely dying in that spot. That's a good catch from the Oni Warriors.
Very nicely done. And Nika not tipping the hand too early or too late with that ultimate there. Sometimes you do that in solo where you'll just throw out the ult, but at that point, Cuvo was right on time. As soon as the stun comes through, Volcanic Lightning on top of them. That timing is so nice to see from Oni Warriors as they answer back. And is that what you want them to do at this point, Oni Warriors? Is threaten Baskin, or do you double down on duo lane, or where are you looking to pressure?
You have a brief window to really pressure Baskin on this RDO until he gets that Breastplate of Valor online and he gets that cooldown, because RDO feels okay, trending toward good if you don't have cooldown, but once you can really spam all those abilities, once your dash is up more consistently so you can use it for a boxing tool and then also still have it to escape, that's when these Guardian solos really start to feel like they're impossible to bring down. So they're really working with the limited window that they have, and then they really need to transfer that attention to somewhere else. I think that probably duo lane is your best bet, and again, it is a soul, which is not the easiest god to kill, but Pele very effective at at closing space between herself and her target, and also that burst damage is just enough to get off right before she would get into that third ability, Disapparate, and get her immunity. So they've definitely got the tools to deal with the left-hand side of the map if they can transfer their attention over there, but at least for the time being, it's probably in their best interest to have really kind of leaned on this RDO early on and found some kind of value there.
And I like the pickup that you mentioned there, where they've got these tools. If you look at Jake's build, going straight for the Sovereignty, this is just to say, hey, whoever I'm around, make it harder for this Pele. Make it harder for these double hunters to deal with. And in this situation, I think it's absolutely beautiful to see, as now Olympus Bolts want to try and get a bit aggressive here. Vote used that ult on the wave already, so we'll have to go ahead and flutter away from this. Invade could go down and is successful. Awesome Jake will go ahead and happily parade around with that purple buff around their waist, as now we've also got options for when these towers now spawn back up. So could be an interesting to see who's going to take out that. It's a lot of jungle pressure could be needed for it, but for now both seem fairly content. Venenu gets a nice ultimate onto Cuvo, but no more follow-up there. It's about half his health. Jake has been pestering around this left-hand side, but Cuvo should be fine here.
And it was just about perfect timing that you highlighted Awesome Jake on the Sovereignty right before that purple buff invade, because again, double hunter composition, very good at shredding objectives, a lot of sustained damage, but it's all physical damage, right? Like, you just build Sovereignty early against a composition like this, and you've got a good 5 to 10 minutes, honestly, depending on game state, where you feel next to unkillable. Like, you have so many Fizz prots right now on Awesome Jake, on a god that is already so difficult to kill, and nobody's got any pen yet for the Warriors. They won't get it for quite a while either, just now finishing off those first items. So you've got a good window to work with where Awesome Jake is next to immortal on this map. And that goes double for just about anybody else on this team that decides they want to kid into some Fizz.
Jungles trying to answer back from what happened last time. Nika is okay for now and will be able to go ahead and get away. Cuvo was hiding around the corner. They even pulled over Dardes as well if the fight spilled on a little further. But Baskin's starting to show up, like you said, that cooldown, that breastplate of valor. Nika tried to go for more than just the proxy farm, but doesn't look like they were able to get much.
Yeah, they didn't get a whole lot there, but I do like that you're at least trying to put your attention where you feel like you're the strongest. Nika on these buff invades is probably going to be a menace just because that heavenly reflection mirror is actually a very large chunk of damage. It's incredibly difficult to secure over this ability just because it's one big burst of damage as opposed to the Ardio that uses a whole bunch of different abilities to really communicate their damage effectively. So I like Nika trying to get active there, and Cuvo was just there in time to sniff out that gank and make sure that Nika could get out in time, because I think that without Cuvo there, Nika probably panics a little bit more, maybe uses the ult. That would encourage the Lasbra ult as well to bring them back in, so it's all for the best that everything panned out the way that it did, because that could have gotten a lot messier.
Oh, talking about messy, Neomar creates a nice little spot for them. Then, though, will get the beads off and a good ultimate. They'll take a stinger to the back, but will not have to worry too much. As Oni Warriors now, they're starting to look for some kind of pick comp here. And honestly, with the amount of burst they've got, sure, they can butt heads, but why risk taking a 5v5 when you could just find a clean pick? That, to me, could be really scary. As again, they're looking over this side on the right-hand side. Lasbra is hovering around here, but has to be careful. I think they figured it out that there was someone coming around. So, yeah, straight away, throw out a cat. They ain't going to be able to save that blue buff.
And now that the Oni Warriors are putting so much pressure on this right-hand side, take a look at this map. All of these wards on left, they even ping them out there. We can see you if you go here, 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 or here. They have so much vision around this Gold Fury pit, which allows them to play more aggressive on the right-hand side. A lot of the problem with playing on solo side early on is if you dedicate too many resources, the other team just goes, all right, Gold Fury time. And then that's just about all you can do about that. But because the Oni Warriors have such incredible vision around this pit, the Olympus Bolts are kind of with their hands tied. There's not a whole lot they can do to react unless they want to fight directly into the strength of the Oni Warriors, which, like you said, pick-centered composition early on. They just want to root somebody with Neoma and kill them as effectively as possible. And notably, blink instead of beads for this Bastet. Lasbra doesn't have an option to get away from that. Neither does Awesome Jake, but, I mean, my man's building into a breastplate after a sovereignty. Are you really expecting to bring this guy down? It's a lot of Nika doing whatever he wants on this side of the map, and the Oni Warriors just kind of enabling him to do that.
And it's not worked out too bad for them. Though that said, we did kind of get a peek at the graphs there. Bolts do have a technical lead in terms of the gold and XP, but about 1,000 gold split between the 5 players, you're looking at like a century ward's worth at best. As again, we are going to see a little bit of pressure in mid, but Jake's more than comfortable to take that. And Olympus Bolts have become aware of what's happening on the right-hand side, so much so that they're able to grab the Pyromancer. So the first objective goes down, and that feels pretty good for the Olympus Bolts. They've recognized if they can't fight, let's just PvE this game to win.
Yeah, and they're gradually, like you said, getting to the point where they're developing a lead off of this. Cuva's going to look aggressive in the jungle here, but won't find a whole lot. But the Bolts have found the stuff because of the stuff. We often say the stuff after the stuff, but there's not really any fighting taking place yet. It's just the Bolts finding their opportunities despite the pressure that's been put on them by the Warriors, despite all of their best efforts, and just kind of looked around the map and said, all right, well, they just backed on right side, let's do Pyro, and they're dedicating all these resources into Nika, so let's just keep farming. I mean, Bera's very content to just get all of his items online, just finished off that Book of Thoth, which he's starting to stack up here, which feels a little weird for a soul specifically, but it has pen now, so it's actually a pretty good option for a damage option against these backliners specifically, and makes exactly that. The damage on these backliners very strong and very formidable. Vote has to be very careful over here because Bera can fight him for no reason, and will be completely okay with that because you're never bringing this soul down in the 1v1.
It's going to be very difficult to do so. I definitely agree. And you don't really want to be trying to risk that. Is this a 1v1? But you say that, like, oh, we haven't seen this Book of Thoth. You remember the Zeros playing this card where it's just full damage, no attack
Full
speed?
power, baby.
Ridiculous. Like, you can, that's the thing. She's so versatile. You want to go attack speed? Go for it. She's insane. You want to go full ability damage? Go for it. She's insane. That's what I love. Like, you look at the items. It's a Bancross Talon and a Book of Thoth. But she's still keeping up in terms of attack speed chains here. And that can only get better. Like, it's so difficult to try and itemize around her, as we are seeing now a bit more of a bigger group here. We are also seeing Baskin make the rotation. This is something the Olympus want to fight for. Jake tried to start some kind of engagement with the Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, but unfortunately, speed buff is too good. Cubo Fred gets to just walk away from that one, and so now Olympus Bolts kind of seem to have lost their luster for this Gold Fury.
Yeah, but they know that Amaterasu Nika's back over in the right lane. She crossed over a ward, so now Olympus Bolts are going to go ahead and pull this. They have to get a response very quickly.
Well, they got a response out of Volt, about half their health, and the ultimate. It's a good look for them. Blink on in from Cubo Fred is just a little too late. Gold Fury goes down, but Nika's here, taking down Venenu. Lasbro finds Cubo Fred, leaving it as a 1-for-1, but Nika will not let this go. Dazzling offense is good for a stun, but the rest of the team is too far away. Nika's not dissuaded. Nika's gonna get a double kill under the tier 2 tower? Okay.
Sure.
Pop off.
I mean, the end of that is going to be the punctuation mark is the fact that the Bolts got the Gold Fury, and now they're going to actually look for a little bit more onto Dardas, but with Neil Mahir, he's fairly safe. Gold Fury goes down, objective goes down in favor of the Bolts, but we're really starting to see already all of the payoff from the Oni Warriors strategy early on. And it's just get Nika as ahead as possible and put Baskin as far behind as possible. And when you can just tower dive a guy for next to no reason and get out completely unpunished like that, it's a pretty good investment of your gold. I think it's only a matter of time before these fights get balanced. Remember, Nika wasn't there early on. That was the only reason the Bolts pulled that one. Once we see this 5v5 and this lead on Nika, highest net worth in the lobby, about 500 ahead of anybody else, that's going to be when the Oni Warriors really start to turn their own heads in this fight, because Bolts had the advantage and they barely got out by the skin of their teeth. Now imagine if for some reason Nika was actually there. That could have been a completely different fight, and that could have been a lot worse for the Bolts.
Definitely agree there. And I love the fact that Cubo's the one to just blink in and say, no, I'm going for something. He knows the teammates coming around with that fully upgraded teleport as well. The one thing for me was just Oni Warriors, like, if Nika is on their own there, sure, Nika can tower dive that and get away with it. I'm just so surprised that the rest of the team weren't as followed up on that. Like, it doesn't look like the rest of Olympus Bolts were harassed out into a lane or back down to tier 2s. They just kind of went, oh yeah, it's Nika. Nika's doing his own thing.
Yeah, but like, what exactly are you going to do about it, right? Like, Baskin wasn't close enough to help him out. The only member that has control in their kit that was there was AJ. And AJ used the root, and it wasn't enough to stop Nika. Unless you have Whirlwind of Rage and Steel there, you're not peeling that Nika Amaterasu away from anybody on this team. There's very little relevant CC for the Olympus Bolts outside of ultimates, and we really felt it there because Nika just does whatever he wants.
Well, Oni Warriors are going to do what they want this time. They'll be the ones to grab the Pyromancer. AJ is a little far forward to try and trap out anyone. Lasbro also look to try and contest, as we are going to see both these hunters, I say both these hunters, but both members of the damage dealers looking to try and pressure out these towers. But even so, they just get so much issues trying to do so. Big Whirlwind of Rage and Steel could have been there, but unfortunately had to be used for CC immunity. And now Neilmar is going to try and chase forward. Doesn't land on the dash afterwards to find much else, but they successfully hold, all because Neil puts down his 2.
Yeah, it is a space creation tool in the sense that you don't want to stand it for an extended period of time, and Cuva wants to get out of here as quickly as possible, but Baskin will not
That's
let
one
him.
way.
Nika's on the scene to see him go down, but again, haven't felt the impact from this Nika Amaterasu in these team fights just yet. It feels like every single time we see him on the map, it's on the back end of these engagements, right after the Gold Fury goes down, right after Cuvo Fred goes down. Nika needs to be there first, or at least on time to these engagements, because otherwise the Bolts are pretty comfortably just scaling up their lead. They had about 500, maybe 1,000 early on, now about 1.5. It's not a lot to work with, it really isn't, but it's indicative of the fact that they are gradually climbing their way into this game, and the Warriors so far haven't had a great response for it.
They certainly haven't, but look at this. It's 3-3 at 18 minutes in, and it has all been junglers and solo laners who have had these kills and or deaths coming through from it. Mid lane has been around in some of them, and duo lane has been untouched entirely for Neil and Vote, and it's pretty much the same side in terms of Awesome Jake and Barra. It has all been this mid and right-hand side, and you mentioned about scaling up, like, as great as a Cupid is for a team fight, as great as Cupid is for share the love, I think I'd rather have a soul on my team in the late game because, like we said, she can build pure damage and obliterate you. She can build pure attack speed and obliterate you. And you said on the desk as well, mages take a long time to get online. Well, you're already letting Barra do that. As look at that, two autos there, 400 damage immediately. AJ is over this side of the map and trying to find, well, I say a way out, but I'm not going to be able to find it. Nika on time to take this one down. Olympus Bolts now having to sit and watch as this Fury is going to get taken. There was just no way in for anyone here because their main frontliner just got evaporated.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we were talking about, right? Nika needs to be there on the offset to get these fights started, and because he's finally there on time or early, it's just a great opportunity for the Warriors, who now shore up that gold lead that we were talking about. It wasn't a whole lot to work with, but it was something for their troubles, and now that's been erased by the Warriors here, who seem to be very comfortable being on the front foot right now. They were kind of sitting back, letting the Bolts farm up, but now no longer. They say, we're getting Gold Fury, we're killing AJ, and we're taking this middle tower. That opens up the map a whole lot more for them, makes it a lot less safe for this hunter Venenu is on to really position appropriately in these fights where you want to be at max range for these auto attacks, for this polymorph, but the closer you have to get, the scarier it is, because Cuvo will blow you up in an instant, and if you get caught by one of these stingers or a Fields of Love or any of these relevant cripples that the Oni Warriors have, that's your beads gone, if not your life gone. So that is definitely something that the Bolts have to be more conscientious of going forward, because things are starting to get a little shaky for them. They've got the soul in the oven, that's all well and good. It's going to get late game, it's going to get nuclear, but the Warriors aren't going to want to let you get that far.
Yeah, I was going to say that she may be in the oven, but right now in the furnace is the entirety of the Oni Warriors looking for the Fire Giant. They will get it. Lasbro will not be lucky enough to steal one away. Cuvo Fred will take them down as well. All 5 members with that Fire Giant there. And Olympus Bolts have felt uncharacteristic. Like, usually these teams are so good on recognizing timings for opportunities for sneaking away Fire Giants or Furies or anything like that. No one was there, and everyone just kind of, I don't know if it was a call to let it go or not, but Lasma was the only one who seemed to show any kind of presence there at all. As now right side Phoenix is exposed. Baskin, again, only one to show any kind of face this side here. Olympus Bolts do have 2 trebuchets that might help, but at this point, everyone's just so disconjointed.
Yeah, they're going to grab Neilma here, throw him into the tower. That could be trouble for this Nut. She's going to go down. There goes their
that's
seat.
Big! No, there's not gone down. Fields of Love, or rather Share the Love, should be able to keep him topped off a little bit. Didn't take one more tower shot. I was thinking that he was gone as well. Like, I was in the exact same boat. Oh no, everything's gone wrong. Awesome Jake had a phenomenal big ult there. Whirlwind of Rage and Steel, Washing Machine. No one beats it though, and Neil Mars the only one who ends up getting pulled from it. That ult legitimately could have just won the Olympus Bolts another 10 minutes in this game.
Yep.
It may still buy them another 5 minutes just because Neilmar is so low. But at this point, if miracle plays are buying you 10 minutes, I'm a little concerned.
Yeah, it is only 3,000 gold, though, at the end of the day, and they really do have to knock down these towers to make a meaningful impact from that Fire Giant. That's why you can see them grouped up on this left-hand side and pinging out these towers. You don't really get a Phoenix off of this kind of Fire Giant. This game was just about even when the fire went down, so you're really not looking for too much here. It's just collect the gold, set up for next Fire Giant. I like to say it's a lead that transfers to a bigger league, because you're not going to get the Phoenix here, like I said. You just clean up towers and move on with your life and get ready for the next one. But that's all the Oni Warriors really need to do here. They have been playing very well from behind or even in this set so far, in this game so far, rather. But once you give them this lead, once you really start to find a meaningful stake in this game for them, I think that it's going to get a lot scarier for them.
It certainly is, especially now as we're starting to see these double hunters. It takes 5 seconds at most with a minion in there to take down these structures. And it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get harder for the Olympus Bolts. We do see, though, they do still have both of their trebuchets. I mentioned I wonder if they would help them on their siege outs. They want to save them, it seems, for these Phoenix sieges here. But I'm a little concerned. Oni Warriors don't really seem to mind about that. Dardes was hitting for 476 on a back camp. He's going to be hitting just about as hard on a Phoenix.
Yeah, he's got now that Titan's Bane online, and I've been keeping my eye on this Dardes build because it has been a little bit greedy. Awesome Jake has been, again, next to Immortal due to the itemization, but now that Titan's Bane finally online here, and Ven is up a creek without a paddle over here, but now that he's finally got that Titan's Bane online, they can realistically start to kill these frontliners on the bolts. Don't forget that also AMC Stinger removes a lot of those physical protections from you and makes you feel a whole lot squishier. And guess what's a great setup tool for a Stinger? A combo from Neilma, which he's been hitting all game long, as you mentioned earlier. The Oni Warriors are in a very good spot right now, even better without Venenu on this Kernanos.
And that was their best siege defense ultimate with Polymorph there, causing so many issues. It does, however, scare off the Oni Warriors from any kind of attempt. I think remembering back to what Awesome Jake was able to do the last time they were a bit gung-ho with their siege attempts in the mid lane. So instead, they will go ahead and take their lead and make it a bigger lead, as you said, with a Gold Fury here. And what was 3,000 gold or so in favor of the Olympus Bolts is now 8,000 gold in the lead of the Oni Warriors. All Phoenix is exposed. And is this one of these backup setup for fires, or are you going for a siege here? What's the game plan here if you're trying to close this out?
Oh, you're definitely going for this Fire Giant. I think it would be a little too optimistic to expect to get these Phoenixes knocked down without it. I mean, you're doing a lot of in-hand damage, and actually, speaking of in-hand damage, shout out Season 9 Interceptor bot auto attack for securing that Gold Fury. But anyway, back to the game state here. Dardes on this AMC will devour these towers, yes, but he needs Fire Giant on his tanks in order to stand in them long enough. That's why they're pulling this one here, and that's why the Olympus Bolts are here.
Well, some of the Olympus Bolts are. Barracuda is not here just yet. Oni Warriors recognize that there could be a need for a fight. Get off of it, and again, Nika the one trying to get into the backline. Venenu is the target at this point, and Nika just doesn't care. Dazzling Offense will keep them busy. Fields of Lava split Awesome Jake off from the rest of the team, and Cuvo Fred finds Venenu again, the first member to fall in these fights. Baskin as well gets taken down. Vote is credited for the kill there. There's your front line and your best team fighter gone. And so Fire Giant is pretty much all but secured here. Olympus Bolts' momentum and morale shattered there to try and hold any kind of defense for Fire.
Yeah, well done from Nika there. And again, you have to be looking that good if you're the one that has the ball handed to them with all of the pressure they've put on the right hand side. But stalling just enough time for Kivo Fred to get in there with that paleo, make sure that that kill goes down cleanly. Without Venenu, without either one of his relics, he's got the beads back up, but the Aegis was down for a bit. They don't really get the option to fight back into that one. It was really a disengage from the start, but Baskin was just too deep, and now the Oni Warriors are pretty deep in this Phoenix and mid.
They're looking to try and take this one down. And without that member nearby to try and body block this, they are fine for it. Awesome Jake can't weather a storm. And the mid Phoenix falls almost as quickly as the right-hand side one did. 2 Phoenixes gone. And the mid Phoenix being usually characterized as the hardest one to take. That is a good look for them. They still have the Trebuchet pushing up on the left as well. But Oni Warriors want to make sure that they dot all the I's, cross all the T's on their victory sign there. So they'll go ahead, grab Pyromancer, and again, set up for this siege. They're the ones in control.
And that is really how they've been playing this game up until this point, right? Like, it's been 28 minutes of the Warriors not really conceding anything, but not a whole lot of unmetered aggression either. Every single time that they've played aggressive, have looked for an opportunity, it's been fairly calculated. It's been few and far between, but meaningful each time. And that's so important when it comes to stealing away these objectives unexpectedly or really turning on the gas pedal when the other team isn't ready for it. If you are aggressive from minute one and you have, like, I don't know, we'll say a Jade Dragon's playstyle where you go in and you know that they're going to be at your buffs from minute one, you're a lot more aware of what's taking place, and you're not letting a whole lot slip through the cracks because you know if we leave this unaccounted for, the Jade Dragons will swoop this one up. But that hasn't been how the Warriors have played. They really sat back for the first 10, 15, almost 20 minutes of this game, and it was only when they felt that they had their strongest point, when they reached their peak and were capable of fighting, that they said, all right, suddenly we're going to get very aggressive and you're not going to be ready for it. And the Bolts really weren't. They gave up the Fire Giant next to for free the first time around, and once they got that lead on the Oni Warriors, it has been smooth sailing ever since, and they've sailed their way here to this left bird.
Well, this is the last hurrah at this point. Nika is keeping 3 people busy. Sure, he falls down, but that Phoenix is also gone as well. All goes according to plan for the Oni Warriors. At the very least, the base is completely shattered. And Awesome Jake still ends up at incredibly low HP. Shout out to Votes there with the dominance on top of Executioner, on top of Silver Branch Bro there. He ain't tanky no more.
Yeah, Hunters right now just get to pick a bunch of Ooga Booga damage items and then just pretend like that's a real build. Like, they basically say, does it have penetration
Mages.
or does it make me deal Kinsai damage? If it does, then I want it. I don't think that you really have anything in this build. It's literally just Oboe that says, this is not a penetration or damage item, and they penetrate Awesome Jake with that stinger. There's the Fields of Love as well. That is a great pick for the Oni Warriors.
And like we've said and seen time and time again, they'll find one Barracuda now, looking to try and deal with 4 members here. His ultimates go flying. Vote's the one who gets the double kill there. 2 members down. And we saw the last time a 3v5 situation happened, Oni Warriors cleanly dismantled any kind of resistance that the Olympus Bolts could put up. Now we're going to see them do the same thing to the Titan. Baskin tries to loop back around, but Nika will keep him busy. The other 4 members are in. Lazarus blinked on into the back line, but look how quickly that Titan melts. Oni Warriors not even breaking a sweat on that.
Oh, what did Hindu Man, like, install some cheats or something on the Oni Warriors? Because they absolutely made that game look very easy. They were behind early, but it never really manifested into a meaningful advantage for the Bolts. Every time that the Bolts were invading something, every time they got a kill, they did an objective, there was always some kind of compensation for the Warriors, and that's really just the textbook Smite that we come to expect from a squad like this. They play 18-20 minutes of very calm, very casual Smite, and then suddenly some playmaker on their team says, are we ready to go? We're ready to go? All right, pull Fire Giant. We're ending the game in the next next 10 minutes. And it's so difficult to play against a team like that because you never know right when that switch is going to be flipped, that you need to be always ready for it. And once a team can lull you into a sense of security like that, it is so difficult to make that adjustment on the fly.
You got to imagine as well that for the Oni Warriors, it doesn't matter what it was, this was all according to plan. We'll get Nika ahead. Nika just goes absolutely ham, egg, and cheese in the back line. And everything, even so, I'd even go so far as to say letting Olympus Bolts have that first Gold Fury was all part of their plan to just make it feel all the better, grabbing that first one. But how do you deal with this kind of comp? Do you match fire with fire? Do you just ban it away? Like, where do you look at here for the game 2?
The thing is that the composition that they drafted was not one that you can easily just take away from them, because it wasn't, we had a Kali and the Kali solo carried the game. You can't just ban away one god and fix it. It's literally just late game double ADC composition. There's a whole lot of gods that fit that description, so you can't just take away all of it and then immediately force them to go to a second game plan. You maybe target one thing that you think might have been the issue, like maybe Awesome Jake getting stung every time he walk up and then just immediately deleted by the second ADC. Maybe that's the direction that you look to go to kind of force them onto at least a different look in game number 2. But as far as exactly what you want to take away from them with a game plan, it's very difficult, trending toward impossible to do that for just a generic cookie cutter late game team fight composition like that.
Well, we'll have to see what they go ahead and decide. The Olympus Bolts in for game 2 here. Oni Warriors looking comfortable, feeling comfortable here in this, and now looking to try and close out the set. Olympus Bolts, however, are going to need to find something. We saw Barracuda had a really nice time in the lane, despite it being difficult for them, so I don't mind this Soul pick. I think it's just, for me, Venenu got picked off a couple of key moments in that game, and both times the Olympus Bolts faltered because they didn't have that 5v5 situation. If Venenu is going to be playing this big team fight ultimate god who's got a lot of pressure and can do a lot with that, you need to be there to do that. You can't afford to get picked off like that. And Oni Warriors capitalized on it again and again.
And it was also this man on your screen right here, clearly disappointed in his performance in game number 1. Awesome Jake got picked a couple of different key times there, and maybe one missed Whirlwind of Rage and Steel that didn't spell the end of the game by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly didn't put them in a comfortable position. And I mean, if you were going to pick one thing from the last comp to take away, I think I called it just about perfectly, that AMC probably your best look to at least force them onto a different style of play, perhaps, and they'll go ahead and grab that Kerninos one more time, which, again, in a vacuum, was not the issue. It was just the sudden swap up of momentum from the Oni Warriors. The fact that they went from 0 to hero in 5 minutes flat was the adaptation that the Bolts need to make. They really missed it in game number 1. They're going to have to find a different way to approach it in game number 2.
Well, the Ymir not banned away or picked by the Bolts. Oni Warriors will go ahead and grab that, followed up with a Cupid. You wanted more early game? Well, Oni Warriors have two of the best early games for the duo lane here. And you mentioned why Ymir was such a strong god here.
Yes.
Is it just in terms of pure aggression, or is there anything else that they're bringing?
It's just being able to find opportunities that no other character can create from the support role. I mean, the next best thing that you've really got in my eyes is a Yamoja, as far as being able to facilitate and create opportunities that other characters don't do, because the ice wall, man, it is such a uniquely effective tool that Ymir has to just walk up in the jungle and say, that is no longer an escape route, you have to come to me. There's so few gods that have that kind of game-changing, map-altering effect like Ymir has. And then you pile on top of that, Frostbite is one that goes under the radar as far as good support passives go. If you inflict damage on somebody or even catch them in your ult radius after a recent buff he got, they're doing less damage to you and to the rest of your team. It's basically a walking horrific emblem that can also have a wall. And a lot of times teams want to go the horrific emblem of their own, the frenzy, the sunder, all of these good support relics, but you're sometimes relegated just to get a phantom shell because you pick something that doesn't have a way to escape this Ymir if they get caught off in the jungle. Being able to fish for these opportunities with this Ymir is so incredibly strong. I think that it warrants the top overall pick.
And now as well, not only that, but you've given two phenomenal gods for the early game more opportunities. Cupid and Onher both kind of do disgusting things with those opportunities. The Nox pick here from the Bolts, though, this one surprises me, especially with the Ymir pick. Do they just see something in this pick now that Neil showed it to them, or was this supposed to be a Ymir counter?
That's a really good question, and I say that because I'm not entirely sure what the best answer would be, because I don't think that this is a pick that you have to take if it's open. Nox is a very strange god where it's, again, feast or famine, and I don't think that when you're 0-1 back against the wall in a set, you really want to be gambling on your support pick like that, but if you think that you have a good option to shut down what this Ymir wants to do, it's probably your best bet. And if they determine that's the Nox, then that's what they're going to pick. Ymir, again, very strong. I love this god, but he either bullies you or gets bullied. If you fall behind on this character, if you're out of position as this character without your team with you, it can be very easy to abuse him because of the lack of innate mobility in his kit. And a Nox is probably not a bad bet for a character that's capable of shutting down what the Ymir wants to do. You walk too far forward fishing for a wall, and if you get Nox comboed, that could just spell the end for you. So it's an interesting idea to counter the Ymir. I don't think it's the de facto snap lock this if you see a Ymir, but it's definitely in the conversation for these are tools that you have against this character.
And now with this Mercury as well, Oni Warriors. You mentioned last game wasn't just a, oh, Carly got to late game, I guess they win you the game. Now it could be a, oh, yeah. Mercury got to late game, I guess we just lose the game. The way that we saw Cuvo Fred playing as well, phenomenal performance out from them in the last game. I would not be surprised if they could do something similar here. But it is still, once again, this sort of triple physical damage, high damage that you're seeing coming through. It does feel like the Bolts have options to try and play around that, though, with this Nox pick coming in, unless you want to relegate it to, like, Baskin playing Nox solo, and then you pick up the Xingqian again. It feels like, that's why I ask about the Nox pick. It felt like a very odd time to pick it up.
Right.
And Olympus Bolts go ahead and say they want to pick up Odin here.
Okay.
This one's all yours.
Yeah, this is I am Baskin. I am the best player on the Smite Battleground of the Gods at times. I can pick whatever I want to in the solo lane. And Odin is, by no stretch of the imagination, a character that I would recommend to the viewers at home to just start experimenting with in solo. But if Baskin, who is arguably one of the best Smite players of all time, says, hey, I think Odin looks pretty good here, I don't think you really question him on that. And it does have a good effect into the Ymir, into the Cupid, into the Mercury, being able to lock them all in a cage. And again, kind of the same conversation with the Ymir, forcing them to think about that phantom shell for one of their relics instead of that fortifying shell, which can be so incredibly impactful. It is an option. It's not a great option, but if it's what you feel comfortable playing, it's there. You can pick it, and I'm frankly excited to see what Baskin does on this one, because if it's just about anybody else, I'm going, well, why the hell you pick Odin here? But because it's Baskin, maybe I'm just a fanboy, but I think that I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that he knows something that I don't.
Well, we'll have to figure that one out when we're in game and things. The soul for the Bolts again. I praised Barracuda on this play. Maybe we see Venenu take this soul for the mid lane and have Barra go for the Kernanos. The flex potential is there, but Oni Warriors now, they're running down their bank time quite far on this for their last pick here. Likely going to be Nika's option they're looking for, and they will go ahead and grab Osiris. Amaterasu banned away in the last ban phase by the Bolts, so it needed to be something new, but this Osiris doesn't feel too bad. It feels like what Nika wanted to do last game, but just comes online and can do it self-sufficiently earlier.
Yeah, and I do like this Osiris pick here because it is a very good god for boxing in the lane. You don't really lose a lot of lane matchups as Osiris. And then it's very good at diving auto attack centered characters that don't want to necessarily rush to create space between the two of you, specifically in the Osiris matchup, because you don't want to dash away, use your movement ability, use whatever CC immunity you have, and then get hit by a Lord of the Afterlife. That can be a death sentence. So getting that tether onto 1, 2, maybe 3 members in these team fights is actually just as good as walking into their backline and using a horrific emblem, which I think we all understand is incredibly impactful against these auto attack centered gods, shutting down their auto attack damage, making sure that they're uncomfortable where they stand and want to consider using those movement abilities makes it very difficult to play these backliners. So it's a decent overall pick. I like the fact that the Bolts don't change up too much about their draft. I don't think the draft was necessarily the issue, but I do want to know what the game plan is here because it's not as cut and dry as the Warriors game 1 of just we get to late game and then we fight you, and I'm a little bit worried that they're just going to do the same thing here again.
I wouldn't be surprised as well after that last game. You mentioned the opportunities that Ymir creates. All 4 of these other gods capitalize on them perfectly. If you get Mercury a kickstart into the early game, it becomes so much harder to deal with. This Nox has to be perfect on finding targets to literally silence them out of any kind of a team fight. And I am concerned as to where that's going to end up happening. It feels very single target picking here. And Oni Warriors said, okay, but what if everyone was a threat, as we saw last game? So Olympus Bolts, they have the potential in it. This comp is very good at locking down. That is one thing to be said. So it's on Oni Warriors to prove that they're just the better comp here and the better team here, going on into game number 2 here. Oni Warriors looking for the win and Olympus Bolts looking to try and take us to 3.
Yeah,
so let's go ahead and get on in.
I do want to see what the Bolts do here with their game plan, especially early on, because you've called Barracuda's name a couple of different times on this Solon game number 1, and I do think that now that they gave him this pick a second time around, you might want to consider putting some more attention on this side of the map, because Barra had vote pressured out the entire first game. Like, they had so much space, so much ability to work with over here, but they just didn't really make good use of it. They got very uncomfortable with the pressure that the Warriors were putting on the right-hand side of the map, and they didn't really find a whole lot of value with the lane dominance that Barracuda had on this Soul. I think that if you start to lean onto this side of the map and maybe put a little bit more priority on Barracuda and specifically trying to keep vote out of it, you could see a lot more results with the innate pressure, the innate lane dominance that this Soul is going to get.
And hopefully that ends up coming in useful. Interesting start coming on through from the Olympus Bolts. Jake keeping Neomar busy means that we have some solo farming from the solo laner, as well as Lasbra soloing out their buff, and so did Veneno in the mid lane. But it does mean they get there a little quicker. And now Barracuda again with this kind of a pressure. It's kind of awesome Jake who needs to be the one to enable them that space, I feel, especially this early. But is that something that Olympus Bolts are planning here with this look from Awesome Jake?
I think that it's gotta be the back foot backpedal mage style from AJ, because you don't really get to step forward into the Ymir unless you're going on him. And it's going to be difficult again to bring down Neilma because you're going to have a Mail of Renewal very early on. You're shutting down some of that damage with the passive. It's going to be difficult to focus anybody else, but it's hard to bring him down with the shell, right? So you have to play reactionary more often than not, which doesn't always feel great with this Nox. You often want to kind of look for your own opportunities, a lot similar to the Ymir playstyle, where you walk up and say, you can't stand here and I'm going to make sure of it, and then try to capitalize off of the back end of that. So we'll keep an eye on what Awesome Jake ends up doing in this game, because it's going to be a lot of metered aggression specifically against Neilma, I would assume.
Well, hopefully Neomar is able to weather that storm here. Interesting other point I want to pick out on. There are 3 spiked gauntlets on the side of Oni Warriors here. Now, Mercury, for my money, has always been like the last item you grab, like a Bloodforge, but is it all Devos here, or where are we looking here for that, especially Cuvo this early?
Man, you are asking the wrong guy here because I'm a huge Jotun's Erudite kind of Mercury player. That is so much fun to play when you just have 40% cooldown, but a lot of people like the crit, and the Devos kind of functions in that build, and we'll hold that thought as we've got a red buff invade here. Neilma and Darda's on the scene, but
Nice wall.
the counter aggression is here from the bolts.
Well, counter aggression in some regards. They do eventually push Oni Warriors off, but Dardes did manage to grab the 2 smalls, didn't quite have enough DPS to grab the whole buff, and so better to grab what they can than throw First Blood away. But mid lane here on her versus Kernanos, Venenu, hopefully looking to feel a little bit better about this game than how the last game went, but Dardes here. Again, this is a very strong pick for a lot of mid pressure. Is the mid lane, like we ended up seeing, we saw a lot of solo pressure, some mid lane pressure, no duo lane. Are Oni Warriors happy to just run that back again?
You get a lot of credence to fight on both sides in the mid this game because AMC had to be fairly safe with his positioning, otherwise he gets ganked like we saw early on in game number 1. You don't really see the same thing from Darda's is on her. Like, my man can jump in, jump out, jump left, jump right, and he's pretty safe with all of the space creation tools that he has, whereas Venenu on this Kernanos can, get plenty of good space creation as well with that dash away. The polymorph, a very good boxing tool. So is the root from the Bramble Blast, which now cripples and makes you a little bit more hesitant to try to use a movement ability for fear that it might be taken by that cripple. So I think that if we're going to see fighting early on, it's probably going to be around this very volatile mid lane or wherever Neilma and Awesome Jake end up finding themselves, because again, these two are kind of both sides of the same coin, where both wants to make sure the other can't do their own game plan. It's really going to boil down to which team does a better job of facilitating the opportunities that their supports are looking for and the mids are creating for them.
All right, now it's been a fairly quiet situation on the game. We've seen some sparks flying, but none have been able to ignite anything more than a whimper of a fire here. At 4.5 minutes in, game is near enough dead even outside of time it takes to clear the wave first. And no one falling at this point in time. It feels like a decent look. Jotun's now online for Lasbra, and with the level 5, all ultimates are here to swing. It is going to be a Devos for Cuvo, though, so I am wondering whether or not Oni Warriors want to just... don't get me wrong, I think it's weird as well. Like, I'm still used to Devos not having pen on it, so I'm like, this is weird. This is a 75 stacking item. Like, I can't tell.
It looks a lot weirder than it actually is. And that's just because, like, recency bias, you're used to seeing this being an ADC item. But make no mistake, it is a high power late game damage option that also gives you penetration. And what do assassins usually build? They build the Mace Tree. What does the Mace Tree have? High power, lots of late game functionality, and penetration. It's basically like they added another mace into the game, but said, all right, this one, you'll get it later, but it gives you more power. And assassins right now were like, all right, we'll just wait for it, honestly. Like, I'm not that bothered by it. The sustain is kind of a added bonus that you didn't really buy it for, but you're not going to shake a stick at. I think that assassins are very comfortable building this one just about every game right now.
Yeah, it looks to be that way. I guess as well, you need a hand to wield a mace, so putting the hand in a glove to wield the mace, or a gauntlet, feels pretty good. So we have 3 of them on the 4 in total on the map, so all looking to try and get them stacked up. But at this point, Neil is having fun with Jake. They've been batting about between this Gold Fury for a little bit of time, but neither one exactly has much kill potential until Vote decides to show on up. But even then, the Heart Bomb is no stun, and Jake once again going for the Sovereignty first item. This has kind of been like, I feel like a lot of Frezzy style when I see AJ, but we'll talk about that in a sec, as mid lane, both ultimates from these mid laners are going down. Lasbra and Cuvo wanting to set each other as mid laner up for a kill potential, but no such luck. Still 7 minutes in, no first blood yet. Are we sure this isn't EU?
Some of these players used to be EU, man. Like a lot of the Oni warriors, I think actually maybe all of them are from that fantasy land across the ocean. So I'm not too surprised to see that gameplay from them. It's really the Bolts that are just surprising me with the pacing of their game here. Again, I called the name of specifically Barracuda. I wanted to see some more pressure here as we see good juke boots here from Neilma. I wanted to see more attention paid to this dual lane with this, again, Bancroft's Talon and also the Mannequin Scepter for
Good
the soul,
silence.
but we're not seeing any of that. It's really just both of these teams being comfortable farming and not really putting the pressure anywhere. Like you said, EU style of play. Well, that sounds just about right to me when it's 0-0 and what, 200 gold separating these teams at 8 minutes? Somebody's got to break at some point, boys, and I don't think that we're going to see that anytime soon.
I would if it's Ymir that dies for first blood, we are gonna call it that it was breaking the ice. Okay, I'm just gonna let you know right now
I'll be ready
that's
for it.
happening. But that is of course if it happens. But Neil with this Mail of Renewal first item here, so disgustingly tanky, highest base HP in the game. Now you've got more, and these walls have been so good in the duo lane. Barracuda forced to disapparate, and we'll be able to get on out of that one. Laspra is also
On
hanging
like
around
4
this
wards.
side.
Yeah, he's standing on about
say.
4 or 5 different wards there. They're very aware of the fact that he's there, but, I mean, despite that fact, they seem to be very insistent on getting this dual lane gank off, and maybe they heard me in the studio talking about you have to do something to help this soul out, but I don't think that it's just by standing on a corner here, because you can see the response from the Warriors. They're very well prepared for whatever rotation might be here.
Oh,
there's an ult from Cubo Fred just off the mark, though.
Unfortunate positioning there, Lice. I love the attempt to try and catch out Lasbra there. Unfortunately, couldn't quite do so. And now warding has been reapplied for some of these areas. Both teams really like that little corridor, and now Neil is just separating members off. Awesome Jake, again, like I said, been playing this very Frezzy style play, is surrounded, and this might be the icebreaker that we've been waiting for here. Ultimates used, and Cubo Fred picks that one up. Awesome Jake is the first to end up falling, and now with 4 members around here for the Oni Warriors, they will settle for now for just an invade and first blood, but I'm surprised we didn't see them go to the Gold Fury here at nearly 10 minutes in.
And little mana to work with for Barracuda might have been a good reason to do so. I guess they were afraid of some kind of rotation coming from the remainder of the Bolts, but they'll instead turn their attention to the Scorpion to at least get something. But, I mean, we are really seeing the manifestation of what it looked like on the desk, where this Nox and this Ymir are going to try to bully each other, and then whoever comes out on top of that is the one with the team that wins out in the early game. Awesome Jake and Neilma both have been so crazy far out of position for seemingly this entire game. It was just a matter of time before somebody realized it and capitalized on it. And because Neilma was the more proactive one there, and Awesome Jake was surrounded by one too many people, he falls for another pick so far this set. Don't forget, he had a couple of different deaths that looked very similar in game number 1 that spelled his end and really fueled the fires for the Oni Warriors and catapulted them to that massive gold lead they had in game number 2. Only about 1,000 gold so far, but I mean, like you said, breaking the ice, finally taking the onus onto one of these teams. Now the Oni Warriors have a lead to work with. I think that we might see a little bit more dedicated aggression from them as opposed to the casual and quiet farming style we've seen so far.
Oh, we did see an attempt there from the Bolts to try and go for some more PvE style, looking towards the Pyromancer, but Nika was able to spot that one out. And this is one of those things that I was going to ask about, is you've got Baskin and Nika both on these very aggressive, strong potential to try and box or just burst out the lane, have been left pretty much undisturbed the entire time. Is that something that either team is like just, all right, like, was that the game plan of leave the two alone of them, or is that just how the game kind of fell out into the leaving them alone?
It's kind of the lane matchup, because Odin will never kill you or die in his lane if he plays it correctly. He's just going to bird bomb the wave and then walk away and wait for the next one. But the Osiris can at least fight, but now it's the Oni Warriors that are fighting over this Gold Fury.
Well, they are going to see it. AJ goes for a steal, but a perfect wall means that they don't even get to watch Oni Warriors grab that. What was a 500 gold lead is now got 1,000 gold extra on top of that, and some change to boot. No worries, Neomar, no one saw that, but they are now finding those small footholds. And again, it goes back to that last game, how you described it. It's that nothing happens, suddenly everything happens. They've changed it now from, instead of just player aggression, they're just hammering away at these objectives.
Mm-hmm. And that's what this composition does better than anything else. Mercury is some of the highest objective DPS you can get in the game from a jungler specifically, especially with this crit build that they're going in. I mean, make no mistake, if you've seen this one before in the ADC role, that's not an illusion. This is absolutely what the ADC is like building as well. Good dash in there from Awesome Jake will get the beads off of Dardas, but once these builds get to late game, and even apparently at this stage of the game, objectives are just gonna fly off the map. There's no one single big secure in this game from either team. It's literally just both teams can shred an objective in 10 seconds flat. And because the Oni Warriors are on the front foot, the team with the objective damage that is on the front foot is always favored over the team with objective damage on the back foot. They can play so much more aggressive onto Barracuda here because of that.
Whoa!
That's a fantastic ult combo from Cuvo, Fred, and Vote there to take down that soul. All of the aggression that we've seen in this lane has been courtesy of the Oni Warriors.
Well, here's Baskin trying to make something happen in the mid lane. Ultimate comes on out, but the Phantom Shell is used. Lasbra's HP is gone as well. Nika now with the teleport in is starting to turn this aggression around. Neilmar will be leading the charge with another great wall. Grabs the beads from Venenu, but the tower is still standing and no members really feel like trying to dive that too deep. So Oni Warriors find themselves another pick over on the left-hand side with Barracuda, and then immediately hold off any aggression in mid. This is a great look if you're an Oni Warriors fan.
And it's a bad look if you're an Awesome Jake fan walled in here. That's a good ult from Ven on this
Oh,
turn
no,
to try to separate, but he's going to get into Awesome Jake and finally dash his way out of there. Good work from the mid and support combination from the Olympus Bolts to get out of a particularly precarious position there for Awesome Jake.
Yeah, not a situation Jake really wanted to be in, but I'm pretty sure that they'd said, oh yeah, I knew the war wasn't going to last that long, so a bit rough there, but like you said, Venenu around. I did like that Venenu looked like he wanted to keep fighting, but I think AJ was like, no, get me out, get me out, get me out. Okay, 1 HP, get me out. Oh, it's a bit unfortunate there, but no deaths in that situation, and it's only the duo lane here for the Olympus Bolts that had taken a spill, but both of those kills are on Cuvo Fred, and if you remember what I mentioned on the desk, if you kickstart a Mercury at 15 minutes into feeling comfortable to rip the band-aid off and just 1v1 anyone, yeah, that's a scary position to put yourself in.
Yeah, good luck with that, especially when Mercury recently has been building, again, this ADC-style crit build where it used to be the stone-cutting Rage Deathbringer, and then you just try to one-shot somebody off your ult. But now, you build these shurikens and the Devo gloves with this Eye of the Jungle, which gives you so incredibly much attack speed. Like, I'm talking probably 2.5 attack speed 15 minutes into the game if you pop that stim and really start to auto-attack as quickly as you can. So, that is more than enough to bring down Barracuda for the second time over here. Ult comes in from Awesome Jake with the Night Terror, but it's definitely Barracuda that's having the Night Terrors.
Night Terrors, that was just day and night there. 441 crit, knocked him sideways there. Pretty good look there if you are an enjoyer of big crit numbers, as I certainly am on the Mercury, but now the question is like, okay, Oni Warriors are hammering home that Barracuda needs to die here.
Yes.
Can Olympus Bolts counterpunch that anyway, or just do they have to try and bail out Barra?
You can try to make something happen in the mid lane, probably. I think that this Odin is this Osiris is entirely too tanky for you to ever conceivably bring down right now. And I say that it feels tongue-in-cheek because those items don't look like they give you a ton of protections on their own, but the innate survivability of this character, the fact you have to get on top of him with Pele to damage him, and then you get Judgment tethered, it's a whole deal where you just cannot bring this guy down. So really really your only other option becomes trying to find some avenue to Dardas on this on her. But again, it's an on her this time. It's not an AMC. You can't just dive him for being in the lane. He's got great space creation. He's got great survivability. He's got a shell that will eat a bunch of that damage. It is becoming more and more difficult for you, especially when Vote's starting to get it done all by himself over here.
Yeah, and look at this. Barra, there's Disapparate trying to get to Lasbra for safety, but Cuvo Fred was there as well. Nika's even teleported over, and it does look like Primal Fury is the call. Cuvo had the ult charged, but AJ silences them out. Baskin blinks on in, locks in Cuvo, but no one's able to really find anything onto him. The ult there causing a lot of issues for the team, and Cuvo will be able to disengage. Vote finds Lasbra, though, in the entire time, and what was Olympus Bolt starting a fight is going to be the Only Warriors ending the fight. Nika chasing 2 away, Vote fighting themselves a double kill, and now Nika just running this back down. We saw this happen last game where they got a kill for it, but this time, knowing they need to group back up, the Fury still stands, so that's where the team's going to be heading, but Nika is just an indomitable wall. Like you said, far too tanky to even look at. And what I thought was going to be a Fury look at, no, look what Only Warriors. They won't fire, Giant. And honestly, I don't think Olympus Bolts can stop them.
Yeah, Baskin's here on the defense just teleported into this right-hand tower, but I don't know that he knows just quite yet that's going down. He'll hear the
he knows now
here, and yeah, he sees these particle effects, but what can one lonely Odin do?
Well, he's going to try and go for the jump. It's the best option he's got. There's the leap.
No!
And he does get it away with a basic attack against 5? You're crazy! Baskin is the best player in the world at Smite. You said it before on the desk. And that's... yeah. No, okay. As much as hyperbole that is, how do you let an Odin basic attack to steal fire?
I don't know. If that's me, that definitely goes down to the Oni Warriors, and they're not going to let the Gold Fury go down to the Olympus Bolts as well here. They definitely sniffed this one out and will snuff that one out pretty consistently and pretty effectively here. And I don't even know where Lasbra killed Vote, apparently in right lane, because that ADC was not in dual lane, but good credit where credit is due to find a very big pick there, and suddenly the Bolts feel somewhat back into this game.
I mean, yeah, even if they are down 5,000 gold, taking the Fire Giant off and putting it on themselves is pretty much a 5,000 gold swing. So at this point, just shifting that momentum, they've still got a reasonable look in terms of towers. It's pretty much even. In fact, actually is even. So there's a lot that they can still try and pick away from here. And like you've said before, and we've seen before, these kind of comps have a lot of good shred when it comes to objectives and or towers. So if they can get somewhere with that, I am genuinely concerned that we will be going to a game 3 off that. Cuvo does get spotted out, gets blinked on. That could be a big problem for them. They're using a lot of ultimates for it, but it grabs them a kill. Is that worth it, though?
I guess. I mean, very low cooldown on that Odin ult with 40% cooldown. You use the Kerninos ult, which feels a little bit bad, but without Cuvo to kill your backline, you're not working with a whole lot for the Warriors to prevent these guys from just auto-attacking this structure.
Oh, well, you say that. There's a big old 6-second wall to try and contend with. Nika pushes everyone out with the Judgment Tether. Keep an eye on Lasbra, looking around the left-hand side. If anyone dips on back, they will be there to cut off the retreat, but the Emperor's Armor makes this a little bit harder to deal with. Out comes the Fields of Love, though, and Awesome Jake gets stuck, pinned into a wall, pushed out from this engagement, and he's very low. Dardes finds it with the Desert's Fury, finally taking that one down, but now on the retreat. Lasbra's round the back, looking to try and end them, but he just gets blown up himself. Now Baskin's caught in a spot and Vogue gets taken down. That's a double kill coming through. The tower finally falls, but look at how much has been invested. Olympus Bolts throw 4 members for a tier 2 tower, and Neilmar just has to press 1 3 times to make it happen.
And that was a crazy fight. It looked like Lasbra had the flank of the gods in that one, but he ended up needing to tank the tower because Awesome Jake took too much damage on the front end, and that makes it very difficult for you to find the time and the health of your own health bar to secure all of those low health kills. And, you know, make no mistake, there were definitely a lot of people for the Oni Warriors there that could have died to just a tiny bit more Pele damage, but it took him just a little too long to get that that one off. They put some very good damage onto specifically Jake and Baskin to force them back and make sure that they couldn't keep their backline alive. And at that point, it has just been ult after ult after ult from Cuvo Fred, specifically onto Barracuda. He is probably getting sick of it. He's died 3 times, and pretty sure every single one of those deaths has been to the hands of Cuvo Fred on this Mercury.
And that's a pretty disgusting situation to end up finding themselves in, and with more crit coming online, the Wind Demon now for penetration. Even after all of this stuff, incredible work coming through from the Oni Warriors to just hold there. Usually on Fire Giant Sieges, it's like, all right, well, we'll give up the tier 2 tower, we'll show up, but as soon as they come in, we'll back out. But no, they go, hang on, I'm going to make them take 6 seconds here. And then I'm going to make it take 6 seconds here. And that's 12, even just 2 walls, 12 seconds of time you cannot DPS a tower. That just buys everyone else enough time to keep coming in. There was an Emperor's armor for AJ in that fight. And it didn't look like it mattered.
Yeah, I tells you, man. I tells you, you are preaching to the choir on this Ymir. This god is so good, not only at the jungle fights, and people knew that. People have for years known that Ymir's jungle fight is insane because of how good these walls can be. It's actually only recently that people realized, wait, this guy's like kind of cracked on sieges, right? Like, you can block off towers, you can prevent escape routes within those structures and cut off angles entirely so that you don't have to worry about one side of the structure, people coming from over there. Neilma has gotten one of the best gods in the game. I made that very clear on the desk, and he has certainly made very good use of it so far, to the tune of about 6,000 gold and 8 kills in the lead for the Oni Warriors. Fire is due to spawn here, and the Oni Warriors want it, but the Olympus bolts are grouped up in force, and they do not want this one to go down for free.
I mean, hey, if one member of the Olympus Bolts can walk in and basic attack a Fire Giant to steal it away, what are 5 members going to be able to do on a defense? Only Warriors recognize it, say, nah, let's go Pyro, but AJ gets caught out again.
Oh.
A tiny gap in the wall means that they will be able to get out, but not without losing nearly 60% of their health bar immediately. And now with that, Awesome Jake has to sit back. Fire Giant is being pulled. Venenu is the first one there. Walks up, has to get shelled to disengage. Nika's ult pushes Lasper off to the side, and Oni Warriors grab themselves this second Fire Giant. Now let's see how they do on their own siege here. But Cubo Fred's got the ult channeled. Will use it. Finds Lasper, but not able to connect. So they will go ahead and have to start sieging.
Wow, Lasper had the beads there, so wouldn't necessarily have died, but certainly forced out a couple of defensive options there. Unlucky, a rare miss from the Cuvo Fred Mercury, which we've all come to know and love, as the Oni Warriors grab that tower. And this is, again, the stage of the game where this composition feels even scarier, because early on it felt like there was nothing the Bolts could do, because the Warriors were at all of these objectives, they were knocking down all these structures, they were contesting all the farm. That's not even what this comp does best. This comp does best sieges and taking down these towers. And now that you can finally do that with a Fire Giant under your belt, this is going to be a pure melt fest from the Oni Warriors. Anything they touch gets immediately touch of death and will fall to the wayside in just a couple of seconds. Olympus Bolts are splitting the map here and trying to collect what farm they have, but understanding that the threat is imminent and the Oni Warriors are on their way, they're going to begin to start their backs and try to defend on this tower. But I'm going to be honest with you, Blur, I'm not sure just how easy they're going to have of a time here, especially after the Warriors intelligently back up and spend 1,500 gold on the lowest member. That's going to finish off a couple of key items for them. Things are going from bad to worse if you're an Olympus Bolts fan, and the Oni Warriors are sitting pretty.
They certainly are. They back up, they board up, and now time to set up for these sieges. They've got Oni minions coming down on all the waves as well, so they've got pressure there. Left side, as you can see, being pinged out is a Trebuchet as well. So at this point, it's going to be very difficult, I feel, for the Olympus Bolts. What is their point here? Like, what's their game plan on these kind of sieges? We see a little bit of a grouping here, but is a pick before a siege really their only option?
It feels like a bit of wishful thinking, right? To just assume you're gonna pick one guy, because that's what this Nox wants to do, is just root somebody and then they die and then you reset and wait for the next one. Everybody save for Neilma has beads on the side of the Oni Warriors. So you go, alright, well, we'll get a good cage off from Baskin. Neilma's got a Phantom Shell, so you can just walk on out of that. You're realistically looking at either blowing somebody up unexpectedly or getting 2 good cages off from Baskin.
It might be all that they've got here as sieging now. They've got a 4-1 split. The Trebuchets are putting in a little bit of work. There's the blink forward from Baskin. But immediately, just a Phantom Shell is used, and there's more than enough of those to go around at this point on the Oni Warriors. 2 available, 1 still in the back pocket, and they've got to try and stall this out. Like you said, Trebuchet is here, and that's going to cause a lot more issues for them. Nika able to get some safety here. Venenu so far forward again has to beat away, and this Trebuchet is just putting in work at this point. Minions are in as well, but Oni Warriors are just tapping away at this.
The second Trebuchet.
It's working it. It's coming down forward. Again, wall is there. This Trebuchet is just going to tear down the Phoenix if someone from Olympus Bolts doesn't deal with it. That's going to happen here. I can't keep building up the hype anymore. and finally it goes down. Baskin leaps out from that one, and that signals the end of that kind of a siege. A long drawn-out siege, but one that the Oni Warriors win without even having to really try for it.
No, I have never seen that before, where two trebuchets just battle it out with nobody else really taking damage. All 10 ults are still available, and just about every relic is available on both teams, save for one here or there. But they just let the trebuchets battle it out, and the Oni Warriors put something different that was like adamantium trebuchet or something like that to knock down that bird on the left-hand side, and they're totally happy with that, right? Like, that was a very early fire giant for them as far as the narrative tense of this game goes. Only 22 minutes in or so, maybe 23, that one really got picked up. So getting that and getting yourself to a 13,000 gold lead, again, it's the same thing as game number 1. You had a lead, you get a fire giant, you get a bigger lead, you get another fire giant, and then you end the game. And getting that Phoenix at the end of that siege is really just the icing on the cake for them.
It certainly is for them, and now they've got that pressure in the left-hand side as this Fire Giant goes ahead and respawns. We all know this dance here. The left side, hardest to defend, and defend the Fire Giant as well. But Oni Warriors already looking for this kind of a pick here. Lazarus very far forward. Nika will keep them busy as well, so that's going to get chased off and around. Keep an eye on how the rest of this comp ends up looking here. Venenu doesn't have beads, and Awesome Jake may not have much more of a life, but will go ahead and expend the ult to get themselves away. This is a very split from across the map situation here. Look at Lasper and Nika. They're off having their own fun here as Fire's being looked at.
Yeah, good silence from Awesome Jake will keep him alive, but Fire Giant is dropping very quickly here. They're going to go ahead and leash this one, but bolts are still here and still in force. Lazarus doing a very good job of keeping them busy, but look at that wave on the left-hand side, Blur. They're going to have to send somebody back to deal with that one.
Oh, Baskin. Okay, it's Baskin. I was going to say, like, oh, I thought that was Venenu who got picked up there, but no, it is Baskin who has the Hero's Axe to try and help out if anyone gets in a little bit of an issue. Nika, though, created a lot of space, and that just means Baskin's way too far forward. Means he's in trouble. Barracuda finds Vote, though, to start off this engagement, and Baskin picks up one. Laspra, though, finds another. That's 3 members gone immediately. Barracuda finds the double kill. Nika's the only one left. Sure, the Titan may be in trouble, but at this point, if Baskin backs, that'll be dealt with. Olympus Bolts outright wipe the floor with the Oni Warriors here.
Yeah, they committed too hard into that man on your screen right now. Baskin did not go down in that fight, but Nika's still alive here. We've seen one solo lane steal. Can we see another?
Maybe. Oh, I legitimately there. I thought he might have because of the timing, but no. Nika cannot find it. He will just spend as much time as possible taking down as much of the Fire Giant's timer for as long as possible. If he makes it out, great, but I doubt that anyone on the Olympus Bolts are going to let him go. Even if they do, look at where Lasbra is. Look at where Venenu is. They're pushing up mid. They're pushing up left. There is no tower that is going to
Nice
stand here.
teleport.
Nika tried to be cheeky, but will not be able to make it out of this one for much longer. He's still got a lot of HP, though, and he's still fairly tanky. But someone cue the Benny Hill music. That is all she wrote there. That said, there are 4 members back up for Oni Warriors. This might not be as easy as the Bolts wanted it to be.
Yeah, Cuvo Fred burned the ult there, again looking for Barracuda on the soul and didn't find him that time, so now a good siege effort for the Olympus Bolts here. This is also enhanced Fire Giant.
It is, but out comes a Great Wall once again. Barracuda tries to throw out the Supernova. Meanwhile, in mid, the 1v1 is won by Cuvo Fred. Right side Phoenix does fall thanks to that enhanced Fire Giant situation, but even so, Cuvo Fred takes down Lasbra in the mid lane. And it really surprises me that Lasbra even went for that kind of 1v1. Like, that's kind of one of those, like, Smite 101s. Don't late game fight or, like, 1v1 a Mercury is. Now, we're seeing that mid Phoenix go down. Venenu takes down Cuvo Fred off of a quick bit of damage. A brilliant freeze means Stardust is able to find a awesome Jake. Baskin cannot tank this one up for much longer. So the dash on forward from Venenu might be looking to try and find a little bit more of this engage. This is what Oni Warriors need to do now. They just need to run this back.
Yeah, they're going to chase them all the way up the lane here. You can see the pings coming out on the left-hand side. Still a couple of fire minions on that bird. So if they can get over there and they can get some damage onto this Phoenix, they can answer back and then kind of trade out 1 for 1. But it doesn't look like they're going to get that option. So they do shut down the siege successfully for the Olympus Bolts. And they'll grab a Gold Fury for their troubles. But just disaster kind of striking here for the Oni Warriors. They committed entirely too hard into Baskin on that Fire Giant fight to not end up killing him. If you're going to be dashing forward and getting a special delivery off from Cuvo Fred onto any of these tanks, you have to be able to kill the guy. Because as soon as Baskin's feet touch the floor, he immediately burns the cage. Everybody's trapped inside. That's Barracuda's cue to drop all of his damage in. That's Venenu's cue to drop a polymorph on top of that area. That was a gigantic re-engage from the Olympus Bolts, and make no mistake, that was the one misstep that the Bolts have been waiting for all game long to get them back into this one. They've been behind pretty much from the word go in this one, but now with one opportunity, they have done so much good work here, taking down that right-hand Phoenix, and now respawning and sieging down this left-hand side. This could be a game-ending siege with another fight like that.
It certainly could, but we need to keep an eye on Neilmar. These walls are what makes the difference here, make or break. Out comes the Fields of Love very early on a dissuading further a siege, but I was surprised that Vogt goes ahead and throws that one out, maybe hoping that someone else would be there to follow up, but here's the next wave coming on through. And with Cuvo Fred channeling the ult, it looks like the Olympus Bolts would rather go ahead and let this Fire Giant fall off, set up for the next one. But I am concerned that them not pulling the trigger might mean they don't get a chance to do so again.
Yeah, it has been, don't forget, the Oni Warriors, again, on the front foot in all of these engagements so far. They bit off more than they could chew in one engagement, but that was the, oh my god, 1,000+ crits. That's so yucky to look at. But anyway, that is the one mistake that they have made so far this game, is just jumping the gun, getting a little bit too antsy in that Fire Giant fight. Everything else in this game, and honestly in this set so far, has been fairly clinical from them. Not a whole lot to work with by way of mistakes or things that you can capitalize on that you can even call a mistake. The Oni Warriors have been very clean so far. They might slip another one through the cracks, but I don't know. I think the Bolts are going to have to work a lot harder to find that kind of big-time opportunity from the Oni Warriors, who, once again, understand EFG is spawning. These are some of the best fights you're going to get for them. Even with that Phoenix down, they definitely want to contest this one.
And it's the easiest Phoenix for them to try and contest. The exact opposite of the left-hand side being the right-hand side. So not too much to worry about here. My question is how do the Oni Warriors want to try and hold this? Do they go for trying to secure the objective? Do they look for the pick here? Because we know that Baskin isn't easy to try and pick off. We know that Awesome Jake is difficult to find a way to lock down again, as we see the wall there. So how do you look for a pick here if you're the Oni Warriors?
Well, it's the same thing on the siege defense, right? Except you don't have a timer this time. Last time you just had the Oni warriors pushing into you with fire giants, so you had limited time to work with, but now you can still look for one pick with this Nox, look for a cage, and then a reset on this Odin. They're pretty much looking for these two-stage fights, and because they don't have a fire giant team barreling down on them, they've got a little bit more time to work with. They can be more choosy with how they take these engagements and make sure that Baskin gets another good cage off.
Well, there's a big wall and a reasonable freeze here, but that's even bigger for Cuvo Fred, but couldn't find Lasber on the back. Meanwhile, it's Awesome Jake who gets destroyed thanks to the shards of ice that followed. Lasbra gets taken down by the Lords of the Afterlife. Barracuda and Venenu need to show up big to put out damage here. They're gonna melt through Nika at this point for a double kill. It is a 3-for-2 situation. It's all now down to these damage dealers. But the thing is Baskin being around and still having the blink, jumping in sync means that he sinks down. Vote, though, finds the kill, but it is a deicide for the Olympus Bolts. Oni Warriors will now have to sit and watch for the next 40 seconds as Baskin and Barracuda try to break down the base. The Phoenix is weakened. That's great, but is Baskin going to be able to tank this up enough? He should have the defenses available for it, but I'm not sure if they've got the opportunity to take down this Titan here. Baskin's health is just too low, and he's getting harassed by minions.
Yeah, those guys doing God's work out here, making sure that he can't back too soon, but they do, again, reset that right-hand Phoenix. That's going to be down for another good bit of time, but that allows the Oni Warriors time to respawn and make their way back over here. Baskin is here and re-teleported back in with Barracuda, but I'm not sure how quickly they're going to be able to melt this one down. It is taking a good bit to go down, so maybe the Oni Warriors won't have time to look at the teleport.
Nika's teleported in, got the power potion, is aware he'll pull them off of this fire giant at the very least, keep them in contesting for this game. So fire giant is leashed again. Olympus Bolts. That kind of a fight. It feels like if Vote can't get off a good Fields of Love, Oni Warriors have such a hard time in these fights.
And I honestly think it's less that so much as Neil hasn't been finding very good opportunities with these walls. Like, every time we've seen him go for a wall and then come for the freeze on the follow-up, the Olympus Bolts aren't really standing where he's throwing that damage at, where he's throwing that crowd control at. They're very nimble. They've done a good job of maneuvering around where Neil is standing and making sure that they're not getting caught in those corridors, and because of that, they're much more confident stepping forward here, but here's another good wall and a freeze. That's going to be enough to stun out Awesome Jake, but again, nobody really in any danger as a result of that play from Neilma.
Doesn't look like it. And big shout outs here to that Hero's Axe from Baskin. The fact that Awesome Jake gets frozen there and then eats a heart bomb and like 3 autos from Vote doesn't take any actual health bar damage, to be perfectly honest, all from that Hero's Axe. It's kind of nullified everything the Oni Warriors want to do here.
Yeah, and because of that, they're getting a little bit desperate. They sent Cuvo back to base to the reset, and now he is coming back, so they have all 5 members here, and honestly, Blur, we're basically at a reset of the game state from last time we saw this fight.
It looks like it. Honestly, the Fire Giant doesn't even matter. Baskin goes for the ultimate here, gets a Phantom Shell, but Neilmar is totally safe. Neither one of these teams wants to commit into this engagement because they know you lose 1, 2, 3 members, that's it. You do not get a second chance here. Olympus Bolts need this game to take us to game 3, and Oni Warriors really would like to try and close this one out in 2. Backing on up are some of the members from the Olympus Bolts. The thing is, though, sustain-wise, it feels like it's in favor of Oni Warriors with these triple Devos.
Yeah, and they've also got 2 Phantom Shells, which is so huge against a composition with an Odin, and there's a lot of bad that comes with not being able to build beads and Aegis. I'm looking at you, Cuvo Fred, you're not supposed to do that, but once you have 2 Phantom Shells, you can kind of juggle the cooldown on this Odin ult a lot more effectively. If you've only got 1, it's really just wait for it to come back up, then go back in, but the Olympus Bolts have to take all of these engagements knowing knowing in the back of their mind they have to force out 2 different relics in order to get their biggest teamfight ult to get any sort of value. Cheeky little sneak in there from Barracuda, but Pyromancer, as little of an objective as it is right now, will go the way of Oni Warriors. It's been a lot of Fire Giant dancing, Blur, and somebody is going to break a heel at some point.
I like that one. The question is, at this point, in an Argentinian tango like this, it's so difficult to want to make any major move. We are going to see, though, the Olympus Bolts will be the first to try and pull it, because they saw that Dardes was off trying to clear a wave, but it's awesome Jake left on their own, and Vote can pick him off this time. No such luck for the heroes. Axe on cooldown. So now, Oni Warriors have found their window. They got a single member. They got the Fire Giant on all 5, and Nika will be leading the charge. Who cares about these spears? I can walk right through, and Barracuda is harassed from all angles at this point, but somehow makes it away, and Lasbra picks up Neil, now looking to try and take down Cuvo, but he's being harassed by Nika.
Yeah, Nika's going to end up taking down Lasbro. We'll go ahead and back because he can get the reset here. It's a 1-for-2 at the end of the day, support and jungle for support. And because they lost Neil, that is a big tool for these sieges. Don't forget, that is a lot of how they're starting off these engagements. It's literally wait for Neil to wall someone and look for the freeze on the back end. Without that integral piece of this composition, I'm not entirely sure what this fight is going to look like for the Oni Warriors. They've got a little bit of time to work with, but by the time they made it down to a Phoenix, it would be a 4v4, so they're going to perhaps wisely end up taking down this Oni Fury instead and just wait for Neilma here, and it really was as simple as just Neil finally found a good wall. It completely trapped in Awesome Jake, and he died over the course of one single freeze, and then that was the only opportunity that was needed from the Oni Warriors. Both of these teams are very much just waiting for their player-made structure to see if they can get any kind of fight from it, and as soon as they do, that is the only advantage they need to really tip the scales in this one. It's good on the Olympus Bolts that they didn't lose too many members and still get the option to defend 5v5, but this is going to look a lot more difficult now that you're facing down an enhanced Fire Giant team with this Oni Fury as well. It doesn't get a lot better as far as game state goes if you're an Oni Warriors fan.
Certainly not, and 3k pots are being bought and consumed by the Hunters. Votes had one, Venenu has had one as well now, and it does look like they are trying to siege this up. Are you okay with like a four-man, one-man split on these, or would you rather just see all 5 members coming down on a single lane here? Because we are seeing Nika's in mid, but I don't know if I want him there right now.
Yeah, nobody can really contest him, but that leaves left-hand side open here, and the Warriors are going to try to walk in, but Neilma gets rooted, so that stops there. But look at what happens as soon as they turn their attention away. Nika just walks on in and takes half of that damage off the Phoenix.
I thought one person would stay with Nika there and at least clear out the minions, so it takes them a little bit more to deal with, but at this point, it is, again, difficult to find these sieges. They're looking for Neil's walls, like you said, but on an aggressive siege like this, where it's so difficult to find much, you can see how tentatively everyone is playing so far back. Lasbra, however, is trying to keep Nika busy, but Nika's just chipping away at this mid Phoenix. That will end up going down, and now Nika could make the rotation in onto the left-hand side, or even just swing over to the right-hand side where Oni minions are pushing. So Olympus Bolts finally push on out from the left, but mid and right is in trouble.
Yeah, they're playing this so well, too, just sending Nika off on his own. That is absolutely the way you would want to do this, contesting your question from earlier. And look at this pathing that Cuvo's trying to take here. He's on the right-hand side, trying to help out Nika and maybe ult his way into this fight in left, but they don't care about Nika. They're giving up the right-hand bird, Blur. I don't agree with that.
I don't either, but I guess the idea is that if Nika gets in trouble, he just teleports out and then he's over the other side of the map, almost like a mini Horus in that sense. But now they're looking to try and deal with Nika on the Titan. Cuvo's here as well, and all the members from Olympus Bolts' damage are going to push into Cuvo Fred, but that means that the third Phoenix has gone down. It feels like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Neil gets treated to a little bit of an issue, but not much that they can't handle, and Nika is going to finally die for their transgressions, but they just lost all 3 Phoenixes. And Nika was the one who did like 90% of the work.
Yeah, and you can see the pings coming out from the bolts here. They know you do not win very many Smite games with all 3 birds down. It's something like 1% of all SPL games where all 3 Phoenixes have been down, have been won by the team that lost them. So they know that they have 30 seconds or so to end this game, and then after that point, things get increasingly more difficult. So they're going to try to ram it in here.
Let's see how it goes. Hunter's doing a lot of work. The wall's causing a little bit of trouble. But even so, it does look like Lasborough and crew will be able to take this one down here. Now looking for the siege here. They got 15 seconds before Cubo Fred will ult them. Big walls coming on through. Fields of Love is there. Titan is under duress. But the health bars from the Olympus bolts are not looking good. Dardes finds one. Venenu turns it around, but Dardes gets a double here.
Wow.
But they do not find enough time. The Titan goes down, and Olympus bolts, they will not go down 2-0.
Wow, what a crazy heads-up play from the bolts, and you can see the relief on every face in a blue jersey right now. They absolutely knew they had one chance to win that game, and they took it just about as quickly as it came. If they even faltered so much as an additional second, those respawns were going to come through, those health bars were going to melt much more quickly, but they took their one shot, and they absolutely sunk it there. Just a little too over-aggressive from Nika, from Cuvo Fred, trying to push into that Titan room by themselves. I think if we see getting that right-hand Phoenix and then backing up and grouping up on the left-hand side, this could be a completely different game, a completely different game state. But because they were so careful, so aggressive and so uncareful in trying to make their way to the Titan, that was the only advantage that the bolts needed. They have such incredible objective DPS with this double backline composition of the Soul and the additional ADC on top of it. As soon as they got to the Frenzy on the Titan, that was just curtains.
It certainly was. I said they had 15 seconds to deal with it before Cuvo comes up, and they managed to take it down in 12. A phenomenal look here from the bolts. We're going to throw it back to the desk to break it down. And at that point, I need to stop because my head is trying to split itself open.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say that I wasn't really anticipating a game 3 here, if I'm honest. Well, I knew it was 3 games. I was just hoping that they were shorter games because I absolutely want to, still go to the gym and shit.
Yeah, go and do the gym things. Go and do the things you're going to need. Oh, man, just as others were going to peek in.
I know.
Aw. You'll just have to watch the VOD.
Feels bad, man. Literally just as we finish up.
Just as we decide to finish. I'm so sorry. I love the name, though. Anyway, I need to go and probably take
don't worry about it.
Oh. There's always the VOD.
That was a fun game to cast, though. Like, a fun set.
That
I'm
was
glad
fun
that I picked
until
that one.
everyone... That was fun until the Fire Giant. That was fun until
Yeah.
Fire Giant. And then it's just like, hey, neither team wants to lose the game, so
I
just
can't
don't
believe that the Warriors threw
fight.
that game not just once, but twice in the course of, 10 minutes.
That is, of course, also remembering the Fire Giant fight at 22 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? Whap, one basic attack from Gunga.
Oh my god, I forgot about that one. So they threw 3 times in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Holy shit, man. Alright, well, GG's, Blur. You go take care of your headache. I'm gonna go take care of my physical form, so I will catch you later. Thanks for casting with me again, by the way. It has been, I think, literally years since the last time we casted together.
It's too long, my friend. It's the problem. I've cast with so many people. I don't know who I have and haven't cast with, and I don't remember names good. I'm sorry.
Well, you've left me to the vultures, basically. I haven't seen you in quite some time, but I'm sure that we'll have plenty of time to cast going forward here. I'm trying to get as much practice in before the event as possible.
Likewise. Anyway, take care, nerd.
Yeah,
Mwah.
you too.